Welcome to the Partis channel. Today we explain Numbers chapter 13 in a clear and simple way, step by step. We are about to step into one of the absolute most dramatic and, honestly, consequential intelligence missions in ancient history. Just imagine it. You're standing right there at the border of a promised future, but then your own mind and the panic of the people around you turns a moment of pure destiny into a total crisis of confidence. That's what we're looking at today, the story of the 12 spies. It's a narrative that literally alters the entire course of the Israelites' journey. So here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll look at the mission itself and the men who were chosen. Then, the specific instructions Moses gave them. After that, we'll trace their actual exploration of the land, followed by the famously divided report they brought back. And finally, we'll wrap up with some practical life lessons and a quick recap.
All right, let's dive right into Section 1, the mission and the men.
To set the stage a bit, the Israelites have left Egypt, they've received the law at Sinai, and now they're camped out in the desert of Paran. Verses 1 through 3 kick off with God commanding Moses to send men to explore Canaan, the very land he's giving to the children of Israel. Now, this wasn't just some casual scouting trip. This is a divinely ordered reconnaissance mission, right on the edge of their ultimate destination. Moses listens, and he sends them out. But who actually gets picked for a historic mission like this? Well, verse 2 gives us God's specific criteria. He commanded that exactly one leader from each ancestral tribe be sent. So we're talking about princes. Every single guy on this team was a top-tier leader. This was a high-stakes operation run by the absolute highest authorities in the nation. And in verses 4 through 15, we actually get the official roster of these 12 leaders. Listen to this lineup. We've got Shimua from Reuben, Shaphat from Simeon, Caleb from Judah, Igal from Issachar, Hosha from Ephraim, Palti from Benjamin, Gadiel from Zebulun, Gadi from Manasseh, Amiel from Dan, Sether from Asher, Nabi from Naphtali, and Uel from Gad. Now, out of all those prominent names, I really want you to flag two in your mind: Caleb from the tribe of Judah and Hosha from the tribe of Ephraim, because as we're going to see, the attitudes of these two men are going to completely hijack the direction of this entire story. Right after that list, verse 16 drops a super crucial detail. It says, "These are the names of the men Moses sent to explore the land. Moses gave Hoshea, son of Nun, the name Joshua." This is huge. Moses is actually renaming his protege here. He changes Hoshea to Joshua, or Yehoshua in the Hebrew. By adding a piece of the divine name into his title, transforming the meaning to "the Lord is salvation," Moses is essentially setting him up spiritually. He's preparing him for a massive and ultimately successful future in leading the people. Moving right along to section 2, Moses gives clear instructions. So in verses 17 through 20, Moses gathers these 12 leaders and lays out their marching orders. And he doesn't just say, "Go look around." He gives them a highly methodical intelligence-gathering checklist. First up, the route. Go up through the Negev and into the hill country. Second, evaluate the people. Are they strong or weak? Are there few of them or a ton of them? Third, look at the cities. Are they living in open, unwalled camps or in massive fortified strongholds? Fourth, assess the land itself. Is the soil fertile or poor? Are there trees? And finally, the proof. Do your absolute best to bring back some of the fruit of the land, because, as the text notes, it happened to be the season for the first ripe grapes. So Moses is ensuring they do a totally comprehensive evaluation of both the military threats and the economic potential.
Which brings us to Section 3, exploring the promised land.
In verses 21 through 25, the spies actually execute this incredibly dangerous reconnaissance mission, following Moses' commands to the letter. They kick things off down in the deep south, in the desert of Zin, and they trek all the way up north as far as Rehob. They are getting a massive, overarching look at the whole territory. As they travel up through the Negev, they pass through the ancient city of Hebron, they visit the Valley of Eshcol to gather fruit, and then they finally make it back to the camp at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. It's a massive 40-day journey. Let's hit pause on Hebron for a second, though, because verse 22 points out something genuinely terrifying the spies ran into there. It says they came to Hebron, where Haman, Shijai, and Tamai, the descendants of Anak, lived. The text throws in a quick historical marker mentioning Hebron was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. But the really important detail here is those descendants of Anak. This is a difficult name for the Israelites because these guys represented a seriously intimidating physical presence. They were known as powerful, giant-like people. And just seeing these massive individuals in Hebron deeply, deeply rattled the psychology of the spies.
But then, moving into verses 23 and 24, the narrative shifts, giving us this incredibly vivid picture of the land's agricultural wealth. They make it to the Valley of Eshcol. Fun fact, Eshcol literally translates to cluster in Hebrew, and the fertility of the land is proven exactly like Moses asked. The text says they cut off a branch bearing a single cluster of grapes, and get this, it was so impossibly huge that it took 2 grown men to carry it on a pole between them. No way, right? They also grabbed some pomegranates and figs, so they literally have physical proof of the land's immense goodness right there in their hands. After gathering all this vital intel and this spectacular giant fruit, verse 25 tells us that exactly 40 days later, the exploration was over. They arrived back at Kadesh in the desert of Paran, right back to Moses, Aaron, and the entire waiting Israelite community.
Now for Section 4, the Spies' Divided Report. This right here is the absolute climax of the chapter, verses 26 through 33, the debrief. All 12 leaders are standing in front of Moses, Aaron, and the whole assembly, showing off the fruit they gathered. Now, looking at verses 27 to 29, it's really interesting because the spies all agree on the objective facts at first. They report right to Moses, "Hey, we went into the land to which you sent us, and it absolutely flows with milk and honey. Just look at this fruit." But then comes the devastating pivot. 10 of the spies immediately shift away from the facts and lean hard into their own subjective, terrifying military fears. They say, "But the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large." They start listing off these fearsome enemies: the Amalekites in the Negev, the Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites in the hills, the Canaanites by the sea. They take the absolute beauty of the land and completely overshadow it with the terror of the people living there.
You can imagine the crowd is just starting to panic. But right then, in verse 30, Caleb, the leader from Judah, bravely steps up. He silences this panicked crowd in front of Moses, and he delivers this beautifully simple, faith-filled declaration of courage. He just boldly states, "We should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it." Period. No hesitation whatsoever. He completely acknowledges everything they just saw, but his trust in the mission and his trust in God totally overrides his fear.
But verses 31 and 32 show us this incredibly tragic contrast. The other 10 men who explored the land with him aggressively push back. They start shouting, "We can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are." And they start spreading this bad report, basically slandering the land among the Israelites. They completely flip their story, now claiming, "The land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there are of great size." Do you see the difference? Caleb focuses purely on the promise, minimizing the obstacles, while the 10 spies focus entirely on the obstacles, completely losing sight of the promise. To really drive the panic home in verse 33, the 10 spies use a deeply terrifying word for the ancient Israelites. They invoke the Nephilim. They claim, "We saw the Nephilim there. The descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim." By comparing the inhabitants of Canaan to these mythical, ancient giants from primeval history, they are intentionally dialing up the community's terror to a 10. They're making the obstacles seem utterly, impossibly insurmountable. And that brings us to the profound psychological conclusion of the chapter at the very end of verse 33. The 10 spies make this heartbreaking confession. "We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." Let's just think about the simple meaning, the literal peshat of that for a second. It perfectly captures how inward fear completely crushes a person's self-image. Because these leaders felt small and weak internally, they automatically assumed their enemies were looking down at them like they were nothing more than weak little bugs, just waiting to be squashed.
Okay, finally, Section 5, Practical Lessons and Recap.
Stepping back from the ancient text for a minute, this chapter is honestly a masterclass in human psychology and leadership. Just from reading the plain text, we learn some massive lessons about perception. Think about it. All 12 men saw the exact same giant grapes, the exact same fortified walls. But facts are totally distinct from interpretation. It's our mindset that dictates the meaning we assign to the data. We also see the very real danger of fear. It warps reality, right? It makes normal obstacles look like literal giants. Plus, that grasshopper syndrome teaches us that our self-image is incredibly powerful. How our internal fears project outward actually dictates how we believe the rest of the world sees us. And lastly, we learn about the sheer courage it takes to stand alone. Like Caleb, it takes immense bravery to hold on to an objective, faithful mindset and speak truth when you're surrounded by a panicked, fearful majority. So, to quickly recap everything we covered today, under God's command, Moses sent 12 top-tier leaders to explore Canaan.
Over a 40-day mission, they mapped the land and brought back massive fruit, totally confirming its incredible fertility. But human fear turned a beautiful moment of promise into a total crisis of confidence. The group split. 10 spies spread panic about giant enemies and fortified walls, while Caleb urged the nation forward with unwavering, faithful courage.
And this leaves us with a final, really provocative thought that echoes all the way from the desert of Paran right into our lives today. When you're facing your own fortified cities, the giants in your own life, will you let your internal fear define your reality, seeing yourself as just a grasshopper? Or will your courage rise up, allowing you to see yourself as a conqueror? Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.